Hello and welcome to my very first Godot tutorial. I'll be talking about some basic movements, how you can do them, and we'll be using C#. It's pretty similar to do in GDScript, but yeah, we'll see where we end up and maybe you'll catch up some other stuff. To start with, I created a test scene with a static body 2D, a collision shape, and a sprite 2D for visualization, so the player will be able to stand on it, and then the player scene, which requires still some setup. So we can start by adding the camera 2D, so we'll always follow the player. Aside from that, we'll need some collision shape 2D, and of course we need to create one. But we'll also need to add a sprite 2D because we want to see our player and we want to see it moving, right? So we'll add a texture here. I already prepared a file for this. We have a character here. We'll add it right there. And now we can also determine how we're gonna say or how we're gonna have the collision shape look. In my opinion, I think that a capsule shape looks fine. So let's get on with it. For some reason, I cannot really see it. It's because it's behind it. Let's maybe put this a bit higher so we can see it, or put it in the right order. And now we can actually play around with it. So we'll put it a bit downwards, maybe a bit bigger. Okay, let's have a look. Okay. Almost perfect. Yep, there we go. So now we can collide the player with the test platform. We will have a check on the layers. I set these up as well. We have a world layer and a player layer. So the mask here is going to collide with the world. So this static body 2D has the same, but in the other direction. So this is the world and it collides with the player. Okay, so let's get started. What I want to do here is add a script to the player so we can actually make it move. So we're just going to say, okay, attach a new existing script. We'll go to the scripts folder and we'll name it player.cs. We'll create the script and we'll get into the editor right now. Here we go. Okay, so to do the basic movements, we need a few variables. And to start with, I'm going to say we'll need some speed. We need the speeds and we'll expose them so we can edit them at the editor. So we'll say, okay, float speed. We'll say, for example, this is 300. Then we also want to expose another variable or a parameter, which is named float gravity. And we'll say this is 400. This is essentially how fast we want the character to fall down. Then, as last but not least, we'll add a jump force. So we also want to be able that the player can jump a bit. Here we go. We'll set some basic values, so if you don't fill it in, these will be used. Okay. Then we can also create the basic override, which is void, and then we say physics process with a double delta. And we're going to remove this one. And what we're then going to do is call the default move and slide. So, move and slide. So Godot will handle some physics for us, and this is just doing that what we need. Okay, let's first start by applying gravity. So we'll make a method and we'll call it name it like apply gravity. We'll also pass the delta. The delta is pretty important for us because it actually represents the time passed since the last frame. When you apply gravity or you move an object in your game, you want to use delta and you ensure that the effects are consistent regardless of how fast or slow your frames are processed. So, for example, if my frames per second are higher than yours, then I want to still have the same effect. That's why we need to use and work with this. So we'll apply gravity, we'll create a method out of it. Well, let's get rid of this one. And we're gonna first want to know if we are actually on the floor or not. Also something nice from Godot. So we can actually say, am I not, let me check, on the floor? If I'm not on the floor, then I don't want to return, but I actually want to do some logic. If I'm not on the floor, I want to fall down. And we'll do that by working with the velocity. when we work with the velocity, we can apply some kind of effects. So we can say, I want the player to move left, right, bottom, top, in any way. In our case, we want to apply gravity. So we'll say new vector. And as you might normally see, you see a float X and a float Y. So we can work with these. First, X is horizontal, so we want to keep the same, but we want to actually modify the last one, Y, because Y goes downwards as well. What we will do now is apply the gravity, and we will also calculate it together with the delta. We need to convert this or cast this to a float, and here we go. So what is actually happening right here? We have the current Y. We will apply gravity to it, and we will multiply it with the delta. So in Godot, you also need to know that for the Y scale, the negative number goes up and the positive number goes down. So in this case, we just add it up and we'll just apply that to the player. So let's have a quick look to that, if it works or not. Go back to the editor, to G-scene, we'll save this. The test scene, and we still need to add the player, it seems. Here we go. We'll need to add a bit up, so otherwise we cannot see it fall. Maybe a bit higher. Play the scene right now. And it's not working because I missed something. Let me have a quick look. Because the script could not be found. That's interesting. Okay, let's maybe just... And we go back to the script for some reason. Let's detach it and maybe attach it from the folder itself. Here we go. Loads. It found it. Let's see what happens right now. And there we go. As you can see, we fall down. The gravity is applied. And it works. Perfect. Now we want to actually start moving because I'm pressing my buttons, but it's not moving at all. So let's handle that as well. We're going back to the editor, Visual Studio, and we'll go and create some new methods and we'll call it move. And not move and slide, but just move. Thank you. We create a method. And we're gonna move and slide into the move method. And here we can start working. Let's say we want to extract a direction where the player wants to go to. So we'll first say, we'll get the input, we'll get the current axis, and I want to know the move left, or we'll extract it from the move left and the move right. So if you always stand on the method names, you always get the information that goes with it. So that's maybe a good tip as well. Always read what it does, so you know what's going on. So in this case, we want to know the direction. What does this mean? Essentially, if the right key is pressed, it means 1. If you press the left key, it means -1. And if you press both, it's 0. So to that regard, it means that on a X scale, so on this one, so the positive means you move to the right. The negative gonna move you to the left. That's essentially it. What I also did, if I go back to the Godot editor, in the project settings, I set up some input mappings. So I already prepared those, damn it. And you can see I defined move left, move right, attack, for example, test, and jump. Just some basic stuff, but we can use them. Essentially what you do is, in the add new action name, you can say move left, you press add, but it's already there. When you have move left, you can actually press this button here, and you can actually add any input what you want. Even joypad axis, joypad buttons. If I press, for example, the G button, it will notice it and it will detect it. And I could say, okay, G is also a button to move left. So if I use the action, or I listen to the action move left, it's always going to be triggered when I press one of these keys. Okay. I'm going to close this one right now. We're going to go back to the Visual Studio Editor, and we now know our direction. So what we do next is we're going to also adjust the velocity according to the direction. So we'll say we'll create a new vector 2. We'll say direction multiplied by the speed. And then we'll just keep the velocity for the y, because we don't want to change that in here. It doesn't need to be done. There's that. So by simply adding this, we're just going to update the direction based on our input. And we multiply it by the speed, how fast it needs to go. And we call move and slide. It will handle it for us. And that's it. If we go back, press test scene, I should be able to move. There we go. As you can see, I can move it. You can go left, and then if you go to the right, left, right. That works. So, and if I go off, you can see I'm still falling, so gravity is still being applied. Then, last but not least, we still missed the jump one. Let's apply that one as well. Create new methods, and we're gonna work with jump here. And essentially, this is very straightforward as well. We'll just say if the input from the action button is actually jump. So as we just saw inside that input part, jump is the action. So if you press a button, jump action is being triggered and this method listens to it. You can actually apply your logic inside here. But there's a small thing that we also want to apply. We also want to know if it's still on the floor or not, because we only want to be able to jump when the character is on the floor and not in the air, at least for now, right? So when the button is pressed and we're on the floor, we want the player to jump. So we're going to work with the velocity again. And we're going to take a new velocity, say a new vector. Let me think. We're not going to, well, that's really bad of me. We're going to keep the X and we're going to actually adjust the Y. And I suppose you can already guess it, because we need to go negative. We'll just apply, or well, subtract the jump force. And that's actually basically it. In this way, oops, we should be able to jump if we're on the floor at least. If we go back to the editor, press play, there we go. If I press the spacebar, I set the spacebar to jumping, you can see that my character is now jumping. And that's actually it. Of course, you can do a lot of more things with this setup or with controls, but I just wanted to show you a small example. For example, you could also apply a double jump. So the first time you jump, you would use a boolean. You would keep it that you know you're in the air, and you could allow a second jump. But that's for a bit more advanced. In this tutorial, I want to keep it simple. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. And yeah, hoping to see you next time. Bye-bye.